On Christmas morning, my mother looked me in the eye and said, "This isn't your home anymore." Her voice was sharp final. No raised voices, no tears, just cold detachment, wrapped in cinnamon and pine. I stood in the middle of the living room holding a red folder. Around me, the people I had called family pretended not to flinch. For years, I had paid the bills, kept their secrets, and silenced my own needs in the name of loyalty. They thought they could cast me out like a worn coat quietly, permanently. But I hadn't come empty-handed. I bent down and placed the red folder beneath the Christmas tree. The room fell silent. They weren't ready for what I had brought. They had pruned the family tree. Now, it was my turn. My name is Natalie Carter, and for most of my life, I was the good daughter, the quiet achiever, the fixer, the one who didn't ask for much, and gave everything she had. Growing up in a small Ohio town, I was the middle child, not in birth order, but in presence. My older sister Chloe was the golden one, all charm and sparkle. My younger brother Leo was the baby, endlessly coddled and forgiven. And me? I was the steady heartbeat of the house, silent, dependable, forgettable. My mother, Evelyn, was the kind of woman who carried herself like royalty, even when the bills piled up on the kitchen table. "Presentation is everything," she used to say, applying lipstick before answering the door for the mailman. To the outside world, we were a polished, middle-class family. Behind closed doors, we were a series of fractures held together by my mother's iron will and my unspoken labor. Dad left when I was 10. No note, just an empty closet and a voicemail that said he needed space. Evelyn didn't cry. She cleaned the house top to bottom, poured herself a glass of boxed wine, and said, "We don't have time for sadness." From that day on, emotions became liabilities. I started stepping up before anyone asked, packing Leo's lunch, folding Chloe's laundry, getting straight A's because I thought maybe, just maybe, excellence would earn love. But love from Evelyn was conditional. It came in fleeting praise, followed by expectation. "I knew you'd get into the honors program," she'd say, already flipping through my scholarship forms. "You're the responsible one." That phrase clung to me like wet fabric. The responsible one, not the loved one, the cherished one, or even the seen one, just the one expected to keep it all together. The one who could be counted on to never need anything in return. By the time I was 16, I had a job after school, a 4 GPA, and chronic migraines I never told anyone about. Chloe borrowed my clothes without asking. Leo used my laptop until it crashed. Evelyn called it sharing, but it always felt like subtraction. Still, I kept going. I believed naively, foolishly, that my efforts would someday be enough. That one day, my mother would look at me not as a tool, but as a daughter. That she'd say, "I'm proud of you, Natalie, not just for what you do, but for who you are." That day never came. And yet, I kept waiting for it. By the time I graduated college, I had a degree in finance, a job offer from a reputable firm in Chicago, and $62 in my checking account. Evelyn didn't come to the graduation. "Flights are expensive," she'd said. "Besides, it's just a piece of paper, right?" Chloe had dropped out of community college the year before. Leo was drifting between warehouse jobs and half-baked dreams of starting a sneaker business. And my mother, well, she was still Evelyn. Proud, composed, and just a little sharper around the edges than she used to be. 2 weeks into my first job, I got the first call. Evelyn's voice trembled, almost convincingly. "It's your brother, sweetheart. He needs a little help. Just until Friday. You know how hard it is for young men to find their footing these days." I wired Leo, $500 that night, no questions asked. That was the beginning. The requests came slowly at first, always wrapped in guilt, nostalgia, or both. Evelyn needed help with the electric bill. Chloe was between jobs and devastated. So could I cover her rent just this once? Leo had an investment opportunity and promised to pay me back with interest. I told myself it was temporary, that this was what families did, that I was lucky to have a good job, and if I didn't help them, who would? But it didn't stop. When I got my first promotion, Evelyn asked if I could help her rebuild credit by co-signing a credit card. When I hesitated, she snapped. After everything I've done for you? I signed. A month later, she'd maxed it out on what she called necessary household upgrades. The upgrades turned out to be designer curtains, a wine fridge, and a 700 espresso machine. She sent me a picture of the remodeled dining room with the caption, "A real home again, thanks to you." I felt nauseous. The pattern became unmistakable. Every achievement I made was met with another ask, a quiet expectation. If I received a raise, someone suddenly had a medical bill. If I mentioned saving for a condo, Evelyn would sigh heavily and talk about how expensive groceries have become. I tried setting boundaries once. "I can't keep covering for everyone," I told her gently over the phone. There was a pause. Then the voice I had feared all my life. Cold, brittle. "Well, if we're such a burden, maybe you should forget you even have a family." Click. She didn't speak to me for 3 weeks. When she finally did, she acted like nothing happened, except her tone was sweeter, and she made sure to mention how Chloe had cried herself to sleep over unpaid car insurance. I paid it. Of course I did. Because I wasn't ready to lose them. Not yet. The first time I truly hesitated wasn't over money, it was over a vacation photo. Chloe had posted it on Instagram, her and Mom sipping cocktails on a beach in Tulum, draped in linen and sun, captioned, "Healers need healing too." 2 days earlier, Evelyn had called me in tears, claiming their heat was about to be shut off. I stared at the photo for a long time. It wasn't just the lie, it was the ease of it, the comfort, the way they could manipulate me with a single voicemail and then clink glasses poolside like I didn't exist. When I confronted her carefully, cautiously, Evelyn responded without missing a beat. "We were invited. A spiritual retreat. Chloe's therapist said she needed it. You can't put a price on mental health. You said you couldn't afford heating oil." "We couldn't, until the invitation came. Don't make everything about money, Natalie." She said my name the way one might say, tax auditor. Clinical, unfeeling. But what broke me wasn't the lead, was the fact that I still paid the bill. I told myself it was easier than fighting, quicker than the 3 weeks of stonewalling I'd get if I pushed back, cleaner than the guilt trips. I began to realize I wasn't part of a family, I was part of a business, and I was the bank. Still, I clung to hope. I clung to birthdays, Mother's Day brunches, the rare smile Evelyn would give me when I offered to cover dinner. I clung to Leo's half-hearted promises to get back on his feet soon, and Chloe's occasional love you texts sent only after I Venmo'd her. But the cracks kept widening. One Thanksgiving, I arrived early to help prep dinner. Evelyn was in the kitchen with Chloe, who didn't hear me come in. I heard Chloe say, "She's like a robot, no boyfriend, no kids, just spreadsheets and Postmates. If she wasn't so useful, Mom would have dropped her years ago." My mother didn't scold her. She laughed. It was a soft, amused chuckle. As if I were a character in a story they were rewriting in real time. I backed out of the house quietly, drove around for 2 hours, then returned with a forced smile and a bottle of wine. No one noticed I'd been gone. Later that night, I stood in the guest bathroom staring at my reflection, wondering when I had disappeared. How long ago had I stopped being a person to them? I thought about my savings account empty, my dreams of buying a home postponed indefinitely, my social life non-existent, all sacrificed for people who would trade me for a weekend in Mexico. That was the night I opened a blank document on my laptop and titled it, "The Red Folder." I started with receipts. Not just metaphorical ones, the actual receipts, the Venmo transfers, the credit card bills. The emails that began with, "Sorry to ask again," and ended with, "I'll pay you back next month." I scrolled through years of bank statements with a sick feeling in my stomach, highlighting every payment that had gone to my mother, Chloe, or Leo. The number climbed fast. $400 for Chloe's rent in Denver. $250 to cover Leo's truck repairs. $0 for Evelyn's emergency dental surgery that I later learned was elective veneers. Every transaction was tagged and categorized. I built a spreadsheet, color-coded it, labeled tabs, housing, medical, bailouts, vacation excuses. It felt like accounting for someone else's fraud, except the victim was me. The first total? 86, 0. And that was only the last 3 years. I didn't stop there. I started screenshotting texts, saving voicemails, backing up emails. Chloe had once written, "I know you've always been the strong one. Mom says you're basically the reason we still have this family." It was meant to flatter, but it read like a confession. Then came the audio. 3 weeks before Christmas, I went to Evelyn's house to drop off holiday decorations she claimed she couldn't afford to replace. I walked in early without knocking, like always, and caught the tail end of a conversation. Leo's voice. "She's like a loyalty program. One text and she hands over cash." Chloe. "I call her the family fund. God, imagine if she ever woke up." Evelyn laughed and said, "She won't. She needs us too much. That's the beauty of it." I stood there, invisible in the hallway, breath caught in my throat. That night, I bought a small voice recorder online. I started documenting everything: their tone, their language, the smugness, the confidence that I wouldn't push back. And the truth was, I almost didn't. Not because I was scared of them, but because I still wanted to be wrong. I wanted some hidden, noble reason for the lies. I wanted the story to shift at the last second. But it didn't. Instead, Evelyn texted me a week before Christmas. "Chloe's hosting this year, but we decided it would be better if you didn't come too early. We want to make it more relaxed this year." No explanation, no warmth, just distance. But I was already prepared. By then, I had retained a lawyera, sharp, precise woman named Miles Torres, who specialized in familial financial abuse. She read through my folder, eyes narrowing as she flipped through spreadsheet pages and printed receipts. "This isn't messy," she said. "It's airtight. What happens if they deny it?" Her smile was razor thin. "They won't. But if they do, we have options." I didn't sleep much the night before Christmas Eve. Instead, I printed the documents, packed them neatly, labeled each section, and slid them into a crimson folder with a brass clasp. It was time to stop surviving their version of love and start confronting the truth. It was snowing when I pulled into the driveway of my mother's house that Christmas morning. Thick, quiet flakes blanketed the lawn and softened the edges of everything. The wreath on the door sparkled under the porch light. Inside, I could hear laughter, Chloe's high and bright, Leo's low and lazy. For 1 second, I let myself hope. Maybe this year would be different. Maybe they'd say thank you, a real one. Maybe someone would ask me how I was doing and mean it. I stepped inside with a bottle of wine in one hand and the red folder tucked neatly in my leather bag. Evelyn greeted me with a tight smile and an air kiss. "Natalie," she said, her tone clipped but cordial, "you're just in time for breakfast." Her sweater was embroidered with tiny silver doves. She looked like a holiday card. Leo nodded at me from the couch, already halfway through a mimosa. Chloe barely looked up from her phone. The table was set impeccably. Silver flatware, white linen napkins, candles flickering between crystal glasses. Everything appeared perfect, polished, curated. But under the surface, something was off. Conversations stopped when I entered the room. Evelyn gave quiet, calculated glances toward Chloe, who offered a tight-lipped smirk. Leo, for once, seemed unusually interested in his eggs. I sat down at the far end of the table, trying to shake off the tension. "The table looks beautiful," I offered. "Chloe did it," Mom said quickly. "She wanted to make things extra special this year." There it was again, that phrase. This year. As if something had shifted. As if I didn't know what was coming. After breakfast, we moved to the living room for gifts. Chloe handed me a poorly wrapped box with a sarcastic bow. Inside was a novelty candle labeled "Burnt Out," scent of overcommitment. Leo gave me a coffee mug that read, "Financial Advisor," because miracle worker isn't a job title. I almost laughed at the irony. My gifts, in contrast, were carefully chosen. A signed first edition novel for Leo, a silk scarf Chloe had once admired, a gift card to Evelyn's favorite spa. They unwrapped them without comment. Then Evelyn cleared her throat. "There's something we need to say," she began. Chloe and Leo sat up straighter, as if on cue. I knew the speech was coming, but nothing prepared me for the words. "This isn't your home anymore." It hit me like a slap. "We've decided," she continued, "that some space would be best. You've created tension with your conditions, your expectations. It's not healthy." Chloe chimed in, "Honestly, Natalie, it's been exhausting. All your boundaries and respect talk." Leo shrugged. "We just want peace, you know." I looked at their face so casual in their cruelty. They didn't expect me to fight. They didn't think I would dare. I exhaled slowly, reached into my bag, and pulled out the red folder. I didn't say a word. I walked across the room, bent down, and slid it under the Christmas tree like a final gift. The room fell completely, utterly silent. They weren't ready. But I was. For a long moment, no one moved. The red folder lay under the Christmas tree, its crimson cover catching light from the silver garlands. Evelyn's expression twitched something between disdain and discomfort. Chloe scoffed softly. Leo looked confused. "What is this?" Evelyn finally asked, her voice brittle. I met her gaze calmly. "Documentation." "Of what?" Chloe's tone was mocking, but her fingers fidgeted. 7 years of every request, every transfer, every lie. I knelt and opened the folder on the coffee table. The silence broke with the crinkle of paper. "Let's begin with the basics," I said. "The total amount I've given this family documented is 141,780. That's not including gifts or unpaid favors." Leo choked on his mimosa. I pulled out bank statements. "Here's 50 for your sneaker startup, Leo. The one you never registered. The one you told me you'd repay in 6 months." "That was a misunderstanding," he started. "No, it was theft," I said evenly. "Here's the photo of the BMW you bought a week later, paid in full. The one you hide at Ryan's house." Leo turned red. I moved to Chloe. 200 for your therapy retreat in Arizona. But here's a receipt from the resort's bar. You were in Tulum, not Tucson." Chloe's mouth opened, then snapped shut. I looked at Evelyn next. "The medical emergency that required 20? Turns out it was a cosmetic procedure. Eyelid lift and fillers. I have the invoice." Her jaw clenched. "And this," I continued, pulling out a grainy photo from the PI's report, "is you at River Rock Casino 2 days after telling me your mortgage was past due. You lost 4,800 that night." "I needed relief," she said, a little too fast. "You don't understand." "No, I do," I interrupted. "I understand that you've built a life on my money while convincing me it was my duty to provide it." She stood up suddenly. "You don't talk to your mother like that." "Which part?" I asked. "The mother who called me a burden the minute I asked for respect? Or the one who told Chloe I was too desperate to walk away?" Chloe narrowed her eyes. "You recorded us?" I nodded and pulled out the recorder. I clicked play. Their voices filled the room like ghosts returning. "She won't stop. She needs us too much. She's like a loyalty program. If she ever woke up, we'd be screwed." The room stiffened with shame. "I wasn't supposed to hear that," I said softly, "but I'm glad I did. It saved me." Evelyn's face darkened. "This is a betrayal." "No," I replied. "This is a reckoning." I reached for the final documenta letter prepared by my attorney. "You have 2 options," I said, distributing the pages. "Option 1. You sign legally binding repayment plans based on your income. You agree to group therapy. You stop contacting me for money. And if we don't," Chloe snapped, "then I file lawsuits for fraud and financial coercion. I have more than enough to pursue damages." Leo looked at the paper in his hands like it might burn him. Evelyn was silent. For the first time in my life, she looked small, tired. The performance had cracked. She sat down slowly, staring at the letter. "We're your family," she whispered. "No," I said gently. "Family doesn't use you until you break. Family doesn't laugh while draining your life dry." I stood and lifted the folder. "I brought this today not to destroy you but to end the cycle. I loved you all, but I won't fund my own erasure anymore." I turned to go. "You'll regret this," Chloe hissed. I paused in the doorway. "No," I said. "I regret waiting this long." No one followed me as I walked to the foyer. The red folder clutched tight in my hand like a shield. The house was quiet behind me, stripped of its artificial warmth. But just as I reached for my coat, I heard a voice steady, low, unexpected. "Natalie, wait." I turned. It was Rickme's stepfather, the man who had hovered in the background for years, neither cruel nor kind, a shadow in Evelyn's house. He stood just beyond the hallway, holding the document I'd given him. "I didn't know," he said, voice raw, "about all this." "You didn't want to know," I replied. "You let her tell the story she needed you to hear. It was easier that way." He didn't argue. "I thought you were just generous," he said slowly. "I didn't realize how deep it went. I'm sorry." For the first time in years, I believed someone in that house meant it. "You still have a choice," I told him. "You can help fix it, or you can sit back like you always have." He looked down at the paper in his hands and nodded. "I want to help," he said quietly. "I'll sign." The front door creaked open behind us, Leo, pale, shaken. "I didn't mean for it to get like this," he mumbled. "I was just trying to keep up. I'm not like you, Nat. You always had everything together. I didn't know how to be useful unless someone needed something." "You could have asked for help. Real help," I said. "Instead, you played me." "I know." He rubbed his hands over his face. "I'll pay it back, whatever I can, just don't cut me off." I didn't answer right away. Then, 3 months, no contact. "After that, we'll talk if you've started making payments." He nodded. No protests, just quiet shame. I opened the door fully and stepped out into the cold. "Natalie." Chloe's voice snapped through the silence like a whip. She stormed out barefoot, still in her designer pajamas, holding her page of the agreement like it had personally insulted her. "You can't just threaten us with lawsuits and think we'll crawl back." "I'm not asking you to crawl," I replied, calm as the snow. "I'm giving you a chance to be accountable. If you can't take that, then we're done." "You think you're better than us because you have money?" "No," I said, "because I have boundaries." Her face twisted. "You'll die alone." "I'd rather be alone than used." Behind her, Evelyn stood in the doorway, arms crossed, saying nothing. "I gave everything I had," I said. "And today, I took it back." I turned, stepped into the snow, and didn't look back. 3 months passed. No calls, no messages, no late-night guilt texts or cryptic voicemails. The silence was unfamiliar at first, like walking into a house where all the furniture had been removed. But eventually, I realized it wasn't emptiness, it was peace. I moved out of my cramped apartment and bought a small condo on the edge of the city. 2 bedrooms, one with a window seat that got soft morning light. I filled it with secondhand books and thrift store furniture, not because I had to, but because I wanted a space that reflected who I was, not who I was trying to prove myself to be. I planted herbs on the balcony. I started cooking again. Not rushed, not out of obligation, but slowly, deliberately. I joined a local writing group and a yoga class. I said yes to invitations I once ignored, and no to anyone who made me feel like I owed them my time. I even began dating someone, Caleb, an architect with a calm voice and a quiet laugh. He never asked what I could do for him. He just wanted to know what made me feel most alive. The red folder now sits in the back of my bookshelf. I don't open it often, but I don't hide it either. It's not a relic of revenge. It's a monument to the moment I stopped shrinking to fit inside a family that only valued my utility. Evelyn never signed the agreement. Chloe sent a passive-aggressive email once that I didn't respond to. Leo has made 2 modest payments so far, and Rick, true to his word, has kept in touch, carefully, respectfully. No money asked, no expectations. That's all I ever wanted. Respect, recognition, a seat at the table I helped pay for. In therapy, I finally said the thing I'd never dared admit aloud. I kept trying to buy love from people who had already decided I wasn't worth it. My therapist nodded and said, "And now?" "Now I'm done paying for a place in someone else's narrative. This Christmas, I won't be attending any family dinners. Instead, I'll be hosting a potluck for the people I've come to call my chosen family friends who listen, who give without taking, who never once made me feel like my worth was tied to my wallet." I bought a new folder too. Not red. This one is navy, soft-sided, and it holds poems, letters, and photos from the past few months. Smiles that weren't forced, laughter that wasn't laced with strings. Freedom doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes quietly, like snow falling outside a window, reminding you that peace isn't loud, it's simply true. I gave everything once. And now, finally, I'm giving something back to myself.